What's up, everybody? This is Chuck, and you're listening to the ITXP episode 6.4, Continuous Learning Season 1 Redo, or Redux, depending on if you're French or American like me. You'll say Redux, but it's a redo, or do-over, or revisit, whatever you want to call. Reflection back on Season 1 and how I wound up screwing up the episode last time. And that's why you get this out of order, because my handy Zoom recorder was failing and there was nothing that I can do about it because I'm a moron. So anyway, episode 6.4, talking about continuous learning. If you listen back to season 1 and the episode around continuous learning, I talked about the importance of learning in your career. It's one of those things where people always say, oh, technology, you have to learn. And people don't really find time to do it or make time to do it. Let me put it that way. They don't make time to do it. So in that episode, I tried to give you some bits of information on how to achieve that continuous learning goal. And even myself, who's been doing this for 20 some odd years, 22 plus years now, maybe 23 at this point, I find myself at times forgetting to learn something new. And not so much for my career, but really for self-improvement, whether it be learning a new technology, deploying something new within the home that will improve the connectivity at home, or just overall learning something that is enjoyable to me. I wound up learning Docker just recently. I've heard about Docker. I knew what it was. I've heard of Kubernetes. I know what it is. We use it in our organization. I kind of got it, but I really didn't understand the use of it until I had to use it myself. And I wound up buying a Synology NAS. And if you know anything about the Synology NAS, you can actually run applications on it. They have a pretty decent operating system, and you can install Docker, which I wound up doing, and running some microservices off of it. And it was really interesting on what it all provided for me, some applications, and understanding how I can have that container use different network connections, or network paths, I should say, whether it's straight out the internet or something that is behind a VPN tunnel. And for those of you that have NASs, you may understand why I want to be behind a VPN tunnel. So I wound up learning Docker in literally like 15 minutes. Now, I'm not a guru or anything like that, but I have a basic foundation of a number of technologies out there, and it wasn't that challenging for me. I'm very well versed in Linux. I'm very well versed in deploying different applications, even from web servers, whether it be IIS or Tomcat, to SQL deployments, whether it be Microsoft SQL, even MySQL, to some degree Postgres. But I have a very broad foundational knowledge on a bunch of different shit. So when it came to Docker, I'm like, oh, fuck, man, here we go again. Gotta learn something new. But if we broke it down to the core level, it's really just another tool or technology that incorporates some of the things that you already learned. Whether you're starting the Docker container, deleting it, updating it, which is pretty simple, running it with basic configs, you've done this before. You've done this. If you're using Azure templates or what the hell is that? CloudFormation and AWS, right? You've done this before. So Docker is really not that much different. Now, building your own Docker container, I really haven't done that, but taking images already that are available to me and just understanding the core concepts of how do you configure a container based on my needs, and like I said, either running it behind a VPN or running it straight out my network, pretty straightforward. So now that's actually triggered me, or motivated me, I should say, to learn something new. It's one of those things where I I never wanted to learn it because I was like, oh, how is this going to benefit my job? I'm so into the weeds in this technology, my current technology, that it's hard to move away because you don't want to go down in salary. I don't really care about titles anymore. But honestly, I don't want to be too technical anymore, getting into the weeds. I'd rather be where I am now in terms of middle management, guiding those that want to learn and how to do things, taking feedback from those folks and kind of incorporating into ops and engineering. I'd rather stick to the engineering side because I'm just tired of the ops side. I was on a call last night trying to troubleshoot an issue. Of course, anytime you hear the word LDAP, my team gets involved because, hey, I manage the Active Directory LDAP server. So shit, you got to call Chuck and his team. So I get on a call. I'm like, oh, here we go. So I'm talking to the folks, the Unix folks. Actually, it wasn't even the Unix folks, it was the database middleware team. And we started talking. And I had one of my guys on, and he's like, look, the environment's clean. There's nothing else complaining. I'm looking through the Splunk logs. I don't see any errors. I don't see authentication errors from your service account. It's actually authenticating. So that's not a problem. Even though your logs say that it's a bad password or the account is locked, we're not seeing that. And we showed them the logs and we're talking through. Long story short, 3 hours later, the Unix engineer comes online. He's like, hey, I can't even look up this account from the Linux environment. So we said, all right, what do you mean? Because it's you have to be specific when you're on these troubleshooting calls. And I know I'm diverting a little bit, but believe me, it'll come around in the end. I said, what are you talking about? So he said, hey, when I do ID and the username, I can't see it. But when I do ID and my name, I can see it. I was like, all right, here we go. Thank you for that. I don't know why somebody couldn't tell us that 3 hours ago, but anyway, here we go. So we go into Active Directory. There's a tool that we use from Quest or One Identity, whoever they are now, that allows you to do onboarding of AD accounts that are Unix enabled, so that way you can kind of have domain accounts on Linux and you're good to go, right? So one of these accounts wasn't actually configured as with Unix attributes. As simple as that. So I was like, oh. So we're like, all right. Typically, nobody clears these settings out unless it was asked to do so. So we looked through our logs and we didn't see any changes to the Unix attributes. So that was odd. And then I had my guy go through the backups. I was like, all right, let's see what happened last night. Was the setting here last night? Let's check it out. So he checked it out. I was like, no, I went back a month and we didn't see anything. So I said, all right, that's interesting. But he also noticed, hey, the display name is different. And sure enough, somebody had changed the display name at 3:58 yesterday. And 15 minutes later, after replication occurred, boom, the error started occurring for this one application, actually 3 different applications. So at that point in time, we were like, okay, what the fuck? Let's fix it. Obviously, let's do it in the non-prod environment first. We did it. It resolved the issue. We did it in prod. Boom. 20 minutes later, everything's back to normal. So almost 4 hours, we were on that call trying to sort this out when, lo and behold, it was one thing that was identified later on. But my point of all this is that when you're dealing with ops stuff or even engineering stuff, all the information that you have in your head about the various technologies that you've supported, the various technologies that you currently support, all kind of lead up into situations like this, where you're going to be asked certain things about certain technologies that may not be in your wheelhouse. But again, you have to go back to the fundamentals or the foundations of technology, because that's really key in helping you first design systems properly to make sure they're highly available, resilient, whatever you want to call them, reliable. Helps you design it. And then also, if you have a fundamentals on how things are designed, you can also help troubleshoot. Now, the challenge here was the folks on the call really couldn't effectively communicate the issue or how the application was designed. I kept hearing the communication between the application and the database is working fine using LDAP authentication. So I kept saying, okay, so it's not an LDAP issue. How is this functioning from LDAP? And there were certain configurations that I wasn't clear about because 2 years ago we changed the way how certain applications would communicate with AD because they were sensitive to network issues, and we wound up using a load balancer, blah blah blah. So anyway, I started asking these questions and I couldn't get definitive answers because people just couldn't communicate effectively how that application worked. And again, I do have knowledge in certain database technologies. I do have knowledge in Java, in certain Java technologies, JBoss being one of them. And I'm asking these questions to really gain an understanding of how this application works, because when you get to the brass tacks, you must understand how the application works in order to troubleshoot it effectively. Plain and simple. So this is why continuous learning is important for your career, because you're going to be in situations that, like it or not, people aren't going to have any idea what the problem is. They're just going to spit out things like, oh, LDAP issue, LDAP issue. It's as bad. Here's the name and password, or the account's locked out. And that's all they're going to harp on because that's what's in their logs. They can't break away from that mindset that this is what their logs say. So you're going to have to come in here and essentially try to walk them through how their application works. And let me be clear with you. You're going to get some people that are just going to dismiss you altogether because they think they're better than you because they're the application owner, and you're probably just this one little Joe Schmo, maybe even a networking guy. Oh, a networking guy doesn't know shit, even though the networking guy is probably the most knowledgeable person on that call, because a true networking person knows the ins and outs of almost every application because they understand how applications communicate with each other. They have to. And I talked about that a while ago in terms of how I feel network engineering has had a resurgence in this space because of the fact that it's critical and a key component to every single application out there. So if you dismiss as a software engineer, if you dismiss a networking person, you're really losing your mind. You could dismiss a person like me, LDAP. Yeah, it's just LDAP. I don't do anything, right? So this is why continuous learning is really important. Now, season 1, I talked about a number of different platforms. I'm going to hesitate to talk about platforms this time around because I've realized that platforms come and go. Plain and simple. I talked about Code School last time. Pluralsight acquired them and they completely made it to shit. Look, I loved Code School because they had a good platform. It was almost gamification of learning, where you can actually play games on code by doing some certain coding tasks, and you would gain points, and it was really interactive and really fun. And Pluralsight killed it, completely gone, done. Try going on there now. I have a Pluralsight account through work. Gone. It was so disheartening that they lost this feature of gamification of learning, because it was key for me to learn things like Ruby on Rails or Ruby in general, just plain old Ruby, right? I was like, why did you get rid of this topic or excuse me, this platform? Then the other one was Linux Academy. I was a big fan of Linux Academy, and they were acquired by a cloud guru, which coincidentally I purchased a subscription to 6 months before the acquisition. So now I have 2 subscriptions, one for a cloud guru and one for Linux Academy. I killed my cloud guru subscription because I don't need it. And I'm actually going to plan on probably going to kill my Linux Academy subscription because I don't need it. One of the things that I find interesting when I was talking about platforms back then is I really didn't hone in on the fact that there are going to be different platforms for everybody. You may learn, I'm not saying you may learn, you do learn differently than I do. And by choosing specific platforms based on how I learn may not be beneficial to you. Back then, I like to give examples on what I was doing, just to kind of give insight into my mindset back then. And now I'm going to take a different approach. I'm not going to tell you how I learned. I'm going to provide insights or maybe guidance on what's out there, but not going through the real platform scenario, because in a year or 5 years later, it's going to be a different world. Technology changes every month, right? At this point. So I'm trying to figure out how you could take advantage of certain things where you can learn in the most cost-efficient way. Let me put it that way. Because remember, I started in the industry where in-person learning was the thing to do. You had to convince your boss or your organization to send you away for 5 days at a cost of $5,000 to learn something from somebody that may or may not have real-world experience. And from my experience, those days are gone. Gone are the days where you have a trainer, a really good trainer that has real world experience. And it's frustrating because I remember going to some of those courses and asking questions and not realizing that this person doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to the real world. They're just teaching by the book. They may have had experience, but there was always that expectation that they would be able to solve your problem because you had a specific problem. And that's how naive I was back then, right? So look, I like to be transparent. I was very naive in the early days. I didn't come in through this traditionally, right? I came in through it because I knew somebody. This was not my original career path, if you recall. So that was back then, and now it's very much a world where you have access to literally anything you want. And how you obtain those materials is on you. I'm not here to talk about how to obtain those materials. I'm just here to tell you that there are materials out there to be obtained in the most cost-efficient manner possible. Those still exist. That's how I started learning. And that continues to be a way for you to learn without spending a lot of money. Having said that, I know I'm not going to talk about platforms, but there are many sites out there that do video-based training. Now, for me, video-based training is lost on me. I just can't do it anymore. I can't. I cannot watch a video and learn anymore. For whatever reason, I feel like they're all regurgitated, just wrapped up in a different package. But that may be beneficial to you. That may be how you work, how you learn, and that may be a way to get into a new technology. So video-based training does have a place. I typically run the videos at maybe 1.25 speed or even 1.5 speed, because a lot of time it's just fluff, and I just really can't stand the trainer. There's one Cisco trainer on the O'Reilly site. I forgot the gentleman's name, that he reminds me of Alex Jones. Let me see if I can find it, because when I started watching this, I'm like, is this guy for real? He has the fake radio guy voice. Hey, how's it going? I know some of you may be thinking I have a fake radio guy voice, but this is this is my voice. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But I'm looking it up now, but it's just like one of those things where I'm like, dude, are you for real? Because he is knowledgeable to say the least. He knows his stuff, but I just can't listen to it. Oh, here it is. Look, it already started. It started because I was watching this. Jesus, when was the last time I logged into this app? So this dude is Kevin Wallace. Kevin Wallace in the, I think it's Pearson videos for CCNA 200-301. It was published last year. This dude reminds me of Alex Jones.
Connectors DB9 and DB25. The DB9 connector.
Can you hear him?
Has 9 pins.
Now he doesn't have the raspy voice like Alex Jones. But when I was looking at him, I was like, dude, I all I could think of was just Alex Jones. And if you know anything about Alex Jones, he's very grandiose and very hyperbolic. A lot of hyperbole, right? So I just couldn't really get engaged with that. And so that's why video-based learning really isn't for me. I just can't engage with it. I just can't sit there and learn something by watching it. For me, the most beneficial way of learning is actually doing. I like to do things first and then read up on what the technology is. Like Docker. When I had to install it on my Synology NAS and I started working around with it, I didn't look at a video on how to do it. I just read up on stuff and started doing it. And things went wrong. Of course they went wrong. You're never going to be perfect the first time out. But once I got the hang of it and I understood what the core fundamentals are around it, I was like, oh shit, this is easy. And I just think people make a big deal out of new technology that, oh, this is the next best thing since sliced bread and blah, 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 Kubernetes, OpenShift, AWS, whatever. I'm at the point in my career where I'm indifferent on technology. I don't care. I just need something that will work to help the business make money. And I think a lot of that is lost on some of the newer people in the industry. I don't believe many people, and this is just my gut feeling based on my observations, I don't think many people understand that IT is a cost center and we must do things cost effectively. That's why one of the key components on all of the cloud certifications is running cloud services cost effectively, being efficient with your spend on the cloud. Because if you're not, you're going to spend a boatload of money, and Azure and AWS and Google are going to be like, fuck you, we want our money. Plain and simple. So if you're not cognizant of the fact that you need to run things efficiently at the lowest cost possible, then you're out of touch with reality. Plain and simple. Now, the best ways of doing that, and I think I've said this before, is open up your own accounts on the various platforms. And I'm talking like Peter Brady now. Open up your own accounts on the various cloud platforms, on all of them. Just open up all of them, Azure, AWS, and GCP. Just open it up, put your credit card information in there, and start setting up billing alerts so that you don't get overcharged. I think on Azure, I put $25. On AWS, I put $25. I haven't done anything on GCP yet. I have the account. I just didn't go down that path yet. But that's what I'm doing. Now, to even tack onto that some more, you can use a company like privacy.com, which will create virtual credit cards for you tied to your bank account, of course, not a credit card, but a bank account. And you can set spending limits so that even if it tries to go over that threshold that you set in the various cloud platforms, it will deny the charge. How great is that? So now you're sure not to go over, right? You're still going to have to discuss this with Azure and the various cloud platforms because they're going to want their money. Eventually, they're going to say, hey, buddy, you owe us money. do that. So that way you're not shocked when you see a $150 bill coming from your credit card or your bank account. So privacy.com, I've been with them since the beginning, since they started. But I hadn't used them as much because they were still kind of in its infancy, but they've done a lot better over the past year or two. And excuse me, my throat's been really dry today. So hands-on learning, that's really my go-to when I'm trying to learn something. It's tried and true. I tend to read things first, typically from GitHub repos or various communities. Obviously, the various online communities, Reddit, Stack Overflow, right? Those things to give me kind of an understanding of what I want to accomplish, and then I'll go back and read it. I found O'Reilly to be very, very beneficial to me. And I know I keep talking about, I'm not going to talk about platforms, but O'Reilly has a really good library from videos to text to books. And it has a good search engine. So if I wanted to look at Splunk queries for Active Directory, I can just type that in and it'll bring me to the various books that have some information around querying Active Directory via Splunk. So I find that O'Reilly is pretty good. Now, I'm not sure if there are any competitors in that space. I haven't looked. I'm a big fan of O'Reilly. I got in during their one of their Black Friday sales for $2.99, and then I went in. I renewed at $3.99, and I think now it's $4.99 for an individual subscription. So if you can get in on a good half off deal or something like that, I would recommend doing it because, again, there's a lot of information available to you, and the search engines are pretty good. So just really being that continuous learner is something that you should strive to become. Hands-on learning is obviously key for me, but video-based learning, not so much, but it may be beneficial to you. How do you go about doing this? This is key. How do you find the time to do this? Now, the challenge with hands-on is not everybody has the ability to do things from their mobile device. You just may not have a mobile device that's suited for that, or you haven't found out how to do that. There are a couple of tools that I found on the iOS devices. I gave up on Android a long time ago, so don't come at me. But I use things like Tectastic for my what's that called? Text editor. And then I use Working Copy for my GitHub repos. And then I use Prompt for my SSH sessions into my cloud servers. Pretty straightforward. That allows me to do that on my iPhone or my iPad when I don't have my laptop available to me. And it really comes in handy. I talked about this in season 1 on how to learn when you're sitting on a commode or you're sitting on the train for an hour or two. You can still do your hands-on learning to kind of take care of things, to continue learning things. If you're updating some scripts in GitHub or something in your repo, you could do it right there using Tectastic and Working Copy. It'll upload to your GitHub repo or whatever repo you have out there, Bitbucket, whatever. So there are tools that you have available. I'm sure Android, there's a lot more available to you. But again, like I said, I gave up Android a long time ago. I'm not going back. I think I had the Galaxy Tab S8 or some shit like that. Galaxy Tab 2, I should say. That's what it is. Galaxy Tab 2. Sitting in my drawer somewhere. Done with it. Done with Android. But you have tools available to you to be able to not really need to have your laptop or desktop or whatever, right? To continue that learning. Now, obviously, there may be times where you don't have the ability to be hands-on. Yeah, there you go. There comes your video players. So you can listen in on stuff, whether you're exercising or whatever you're doing, cooking, you listen to the background. But again, how much is that knowledge going to stick in your head while you're engaged in something else? Everybody's different. Everybody has that attention span that's a lot different than mine. So it's one of those things that how you find time to do this is really up to you. I'm going to say this. Ultimately, you have to sacrifice something in order to find that time, whether it's sacrificing your sleep, like I know some folks do, sacrificing your time with your family, sacrificing something at work. But you have to sacrifice something. I've said this time and time again. If you want to excel at what you're doing, you have to sacrifice something. That's why most of us don't excel. We don't accept the sacrifices. That's why this podcast really hasn't, or this show hasn't excelled much. I just haven't found the sacrifice. I just haven't sacrificed what I needed to, the time that I needed to do this. The time to record it, the time to edit it, time to publish is plain and simple, right? But you'll find a bunch of people that are, whatever you want to call them, social media influencers, whatever, and entrepreneurs. You have to sacrifice something in order to achieve your goals. And my goal for this has always been just to put stuff out there, not really to get notoriety or anything like that, to make my mark on the interwebs, have it be heard by a few people. And if it gains more attention, so be it. That's fine. It's really not meant to be consumed as a daily thing or even a weekly thing or even a monthly thing. I try to put out content what I can. And again, remember, I'm just one guy, which is why it was great to have Bob and Mike on the show last time, because it gave insight into other things. I know we're going to do that some more. I know we are. They have a lot of real good input into things, and hopefully this will motivate some of my other peers to finally agree to do this. I know I had Suman a couple years back, but I think we'll be able to do it again. I know another friend of mine, he wants to talk about the hacking or the hacker episode that I had in season 1. We just never had an opportunity to do it. But now that we're all remote, it shouldn't be too problematic. But going back to continuous learning, it's really key that you find a way to hone that skill. You know what's interesting? I actually found, I don't know if I've noted this before. I haven't said it in a while, but the codingblocks.net, it's a great show. You can find it anywhere you get this show. Around software engineering, a bunch of software developers got together, created this show, talked about various topics. And this one actually is, they're going through the DevOps handbook, and they're talking about enabling daily learning. It's funny because this came out October 11th, and I recorded this originally, I think that week. No, actually I recorded. I didn't even know that it was up here because it didn't show up in my podcast feed until I think Saturday. But they had recorded it last week on October 11th and posted it. And it's funny because I had planned on doing this episode already because I'm going through season 1 just see what else I can do to kind of keep things fresh. But they have the episode this week on the DevOps handbook to enable daily learning. And they talk about some techniques that people do to enable daily learning. And it's not so much learning individually, but also learning in the organization, and how many organizations may be in the culture of blaming people, but we should strive to be an organization where we promote learning. And it's really good insights. Codingblocks.net, great group of guys that just have ideas and opinions on the world that they live in. So check them out. Pretty cool stuff. But again, I'm just one show in a myriad of a million shows out there, because everybody and their mother's doing a podcast. So find the one that is geared towards you. Look, when I first started getting into this, I had like maybe 50 different podcasts that would come up in my feed, or maybe even 70 at one point. That's too much. Pare some stuff down. Go back to other stuff. Try to find that sweet spot for you so you can continue to improve yourself, not only personally, but also professionally. And figure out how you're going to maintain your skill sets and how are you going to be that value add for an organization, because that's key. That's key to your sustainability and longevity in an organization, being valuable. You're not going to just collect a paycheck. You're going to go over there to be a leader, to provide some value. And if they don't value you, then move on. Find a different department. Find a different organization. There are jobs out there. Trust me. Don't buy into the fact that there aren't jobs. There are jobs out there. Now it's up to you if you want to go laterally, if you want to go down. Again, don't go down in salary, because if you go down in salary, you're never going to get it back. Trust me. You're never going to get it back. But title, you can always get your title back. This is Chuck. This is the IT XP. You can find me on Twitter, any social, except Facebook. I'm done with Facebook too, but don't post much. Just when the shows are out. So don't have much to say, except through these shows. I'm trying YouTube. Check it out. It's just really a video version of this audio. Nothing with my face or anything like that. Check it out if you like listening to things on YouTube. But otherwise, hope you enjoy the show, and I'll catch you later. Take care.